Hello everybody and welcome back to the Eternal Sonata playthrough. We are finally getting our opening credits for the game. Yes, we're already like an hour in and now is the time for our opening credits. I feel okay with this, to be fair, because it is nowhere near as bad as Kingdom Hearts 2's opening credits coming in like... almost be like 5-6 hours into the game. This is nowhere near as bad. And to be fair, it's just a nice, peaceful look over the world that we know so far. And it's just nice and peaceful and calming. And introduces to all the main players. So obviously I will be telling you all of these voice actors and so on when their characters turn up, just so that you remember. But it is nice that they are presented here as well. So, or at least the first main four. Looks like we're not getting any of the other characters yet, which I suppose makes sense considering we have yet to meet them. And you may have noticed it throughout this, but we've had a character called Frederic in this opening credit sequence. We've had Chopin pieces performed by a gentleman called Stanislav Bunin, and also we had the character name of Frederic Francois Chopin, who is voiced by Patrick Sates. We've only seen Frederic in bed so far. He hasn't spoken a word, but yeah, this game, as we will find out throughout this part actually, is based on the real-life Frederic Francois Chopin, the Polish composer and virtuoso pianist of the Romantic era, so 1810 to 1849. And
it's way too early to go to bed anyway.
Basically, he is known as one of the leading musicians of his era, whose poetic genius was based on a professional technique that was without equal in his generation. And really, Chopin's music is beautiful. And we will actually get to hear some of them throughout this game, and that is also what makes it so unique. It's just... I don't think I've ever played a game that treats its story and its music like this. And I think that's what makes me appreciate it, because there's been a lot of care and thought put into all of this, and while some elements of the plot may not make a huge amount of sense, it is important and it has been really thought about. I mean, for the localization of the game, the text was proofread by the Frederic Chopin Society in Warsaw, because the localization team wanted to be as historically accurate as possible without losing the original message of the script, which just shows how much care was put into it. I'll read the statement from director Hiroya Hatsushiba in a moment, but first we have a really beautiful cutscene.
Do you think so?
Talking about the lights of Ritardando.
Somehow, when I think back on it, I get the feeling it was much more beautiful when I was a little girl.
Yes, well, things always seem nicer in our memories. It's still just as beautiful. You'll have bad dreams if you stay up too late. Come on, let's get some sleep.
Is Ritardando really the same as it's always been? Really?
No, it's not. This place used to be much more beautiful. You have a heart that sees the world with open eyes, don't you?
Who are you? And what are you doing out here this late at night?
Everything in the world slowly fades with time. It is very difficult to remain still and keep things exactly as they are in just one particular moment. But because everything shifts only a little bit at a time, no one really notices the change.
The things that Frederic is seeing, is it all really just a dream? The difference between dreams and reality may very well just be relative.
Oh, and what makes you say that?
Well, I don't know. I guess it just came into my mind when I was watching Fredric's face while he was sleeping.
That may be more true than we know. Perhaps what Mr. Chopin is experiencing is not a dream. Only the individual can determine what is a dream and what is reality. Just because his eyes are closed, that does not necessarily mean he is dreaming. However, if he comes to think that the world he's in on the other side is the true reality, then...
Then, it's possible he may never return to our reality.
Wow, so you can use magic powers too, Frederic? Oh, but then that must mean you're like me. And that you're gonna die soon too.
Yes, you're right. I'm afraid that may very well be true.
So, what kind of magic can you use?
Well, essentially any and all kinds of magic. After all, this whole world is in my dream.
You're a strange man, Frederic.
No, it's true. Everything around us is all a part of my dream. Even you are just a product of my imagination.
Okay then. If what you say is true, can you tell what I'm thinking about right now? If we really are inside your dream, then reading my mind should be easy for you.
Of course it is. You were thinking that you don't want to use your magical abilities in front of other people anymore. Am I correct? I don't blame you for feeling that way. No one likes to be hurt.
Frederic, there's something I'd really like to show you, but it's in the forest. Would you come with me?
Huh? You want me to go with you to the forest? You mean right now?
Yes, because it can only be seen at night.
So yes, we have now at last met Frederic Francois Chopin in the fantasy world of the game. Slightly weird that he's going to the forest with a young girl because he's 39 and she's 14. But as we will eventually see, it's not that. awkward because she is more of a sister to Frederic than anything else. So, Patrick Seitz voices Frederic. He's also done a lot of voices over the years. His, well, one of his most famous is voicing Dio in the English dub of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, both Phantom Blood and Stardust Crusaders. He has also done quite a few video game voices. So he's the voice of Bob in the Tekken series. He is the voice of Teuchi Han, who's the Five Tails the Tail Demons in Naruto stuff. He's the voice of Cervantes de Leon in Soul Calibur 5. He is the voice of Magnus in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, though I don't believe he was the original voice of Magnus, which is slightly annoying, but well, obviously Magnus coming from Kid Icarus Uprising. He's also, unfortunately, the voice of Lyric in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and Sonic Boom Shattered to Crystal, but we'll move that to one side. And he's the voice of TJ Combo in Killer Instinct. There's probably a few other characters that people will probably recognise him as, but that's all I got for now. And that's fine, because we're heading into another dungeon. It's quite a beautiful one. It's a lovely forest at night. You've got lots of sparkles going on. It's just really beautiful. And also we have these rather weird enemies. I believe they're called L'Opera Knights. So the Opera Knights. Yes, L'Opera Knight. Because in French, so L'Opera, but because it's two vowels next to each other, they just go L'Opera. Continuing the music thing, and obviously having seen those cutscenes now, you can see why I just wanted to hold off a little bit, because the entire fantasy world is set in Frederic Francois Chopin's dream as he lies on his deathbed. And so then it makes sense why everything in the fantasy world is so heavily imbued with music. I mean, the fact that Frederic's weapon of choice is a baton, but pretty much everyone's weapons in some form relate to musical instruments. In some form. Obviously, Polka uses an umbrella, but let's just roll past that. Now, what the quote from Hiroya Hatsushiba that I wanted to talk about was this. So he said, people who play games and people who love classical music are not necessarily sharing the same type of interests. Most people in Japan know the name of Frederic Chopin. However, most of the people who know of Chopin think he's just some kind of great music composer, without knowing any more about him. Most of them have heard Chopin's music, but not a lot could put his name to it immediately. By creating a colourful fantasy world in Chopin's dream, I was hoping that people would get into this game easily, and also come to know how great Chopin's music is. And I can certainly confirm that the game is a success in that. Because before I played this game, yes, I'd heard of Chopin, but I hadn't really paid attention to any of his music, and knew nothing about his story. And this game allowed me to learn about that, and it gave me a much greater appreciation for the music he wrote, and also the life he lived, because it was incredibly difficult. And that whole thing of it taking place on Chopin's deathbed, and his life being so important to the narrative, is why the game's text was proofread by the Frederic Chopin Society in Warsaw for the localization, because you want to get it right, and I think that's just amazing, because there are so many games that would never touch this type of material. Like, obviously there are games which make use of classical music. I mean, you've got Little King's Story, which makes major use of classical music. You've also got Pandora's Tower, which makes a lot of use of classical music, and both do it really well. But they use them as more of a backdrop for the game and creating a tone, whereas Eternal Sonata well and truly loves Chopin as well as its music, as well as his music, and so it weaves the music and the narrative into one, and I do just think that that's fascinating and brilliant, and I love it. And I mean, after it does make the game slightly difficult to describe to people if you're just kind of going on saying, oh, so I was playing Eternal Sonata the other day. It's this game that is about the composer and musician Frédéric François Chopin's fever dream on his deathbed that takes the form of a fantasy world in which people use magic, and there's monsters, and there's lots of political and philosophical musings throughout. It kind of doesn't really do the game any major favours, I would say, because most people would look at that and go, well, that's weird. Not really feeling it. But much like the Kingdom Hearts explanation of it's an anime game featuring Final Fantasy and Disney worlds thrown together, you hear that and you just go, not sure how I feel about that, but it does actually work, and it is actually brilliant. And whilst we're in the dungeon, I will say that, on the whole, Eternal Sonata did get received relatively well. I mean, it reached number 4 in Amazon Japan's video game pre-orders not long after the demo was made available, and it even was number 1 on Amazon Japan's video game charts not long before the game's release, and it got rated 38 out of... no. Got rated 35 out of 40 in Famitsu, which is pretty decent. And it did well, but then unfortunately it did drop, and Japanese sales for the game reached about 70,435 copies on the 360 by the end of 2007, and 53,314 copies on the PS3 in 2008. So it kind of dropped off, which is a shame. But at E3 2007, it won Game Trader's Award for Best Role-Playing Game, and IGN's Award for Best Original Score, and was runner-up for Best RPG, and also Best Artistic Design and Best Use of Sound. And in Europe and the US, it did receive many high reviews. So the PS3 version sits at around 82.39% on game rankings, whereas the 360 version ranks at about 80.32%. Metacritic gives the PS3 version 80% and Xbox 360 version 79%. So GameSpot gave it 8.5 out of 10, praising its magnificent visual design, stunning musical score, inventive battle system and great cast, but admitted that the story was completely linear. IGN gave the 360 version an 8.3 out of 10, claiming that it had some of the best visuals on the 360 and had great combat. And they also stated that the soundtrack is astounding and the story did a great job of educating the player about Chopin. However, it was criticised for being too short for a JRPG and for its lack of exploration. They gave the PS3 version a higher 8.7 out of 10, and the Editor's Choice Award for praise for its extension of the storyline, the inclusion of new playable characters, and other extras like new dungeons and massive characters. X-Play gave it a 3 out of 5, which is obviously less, nicely. Praising the combat, soundtrack and visuals, which pretty much are top-notch throughout, while complaining that there were too many mini-games. And my brain's thinking, mini-games? I don't remember mini-games in Eternal Sonata, but I haven't played much of it in terms of recording, and it's been a long time since I played it the first time, so I don't really remember the mini-games. But they also complained about there being a poor story and too many role-playing video game cliches. Which is fair enough, but yeah. But the thing that I quite like here, right at the end of Wikipedia's article on Eternal Sonata, is that Johansson Quijano Cruz of the Elidamos Journal for Computer Game Culture reviewed the game from an artistic and literary perspective, praising it as an excellent role-playing game, particularly for the social criticism conveyed by its storyline. He regards it as a primary example of a video game that makes powerful statements about the society in which we live, and incorporates and analyses, interprets and offers critical commentary of certain aspects of society. And I think that at some point I'm definitely going to read that article, because that's right up my street. Because as I'm sure you're all aware, I do like my literary analysis of video games, as well as books and films and so on and so forth. Just because you really do dig down into the heart of what things are telling you when you do that, and
It's a frame of mind, you see.
you sometimes come away with a much greater appreciation for what you're experiencing. And we have party leveled up, which is great, but now movement is counted in real time. The action gauge will start as soon as we leave, and will continue going down. But we do still have unlimited tactical time, which is nice. So slightly more complicated. Few other things have turned up as well, but we now have another beautiful cutscene.
I guess it's
And
dangerous out here when it's late at night. The animals
it
in the
features
forest
one
never
of
used to
the
be this
most
aggressive
iconic
before.
elements of Eternal Sonata.
By the
It's
way,
just
The
beautiful.
question you asked me earlier, you never told me if I answered it correctly. Of course, this is all a story I've created in my head, so there's no way I could possibly be wrong.
Come on, it's almost time. Hurry, Frederic.
Wait!
These flowers are what I wanted to show you.
Flowers?
Look at them. They're blossoming. What are they? They're called called Heaven's Mirror. They're like a reflection of the starry sky on the meadows. This is the only place they bloom in the forest. These flowers never bloom during the day, only at night. When the sun is up, they stay in their buds, but they're able to absorb sunlight with their leaves. And after night falls, they let out all the light they've stored when they blossom. It always happens at exactly 2 o'clock in the morning.
They're beautiful. Absolutely stunning. It truly is a wondrous sight.
But they're also called death lights.
Death lights?
The sun brings life, but the dark brings death. And these flowers bloom in darkness. So, darkness is evil, light is good. Whether you want to call them Heaven's Mirror or Death Lights, that's up to you, Frederic. But I guess, these days, pretty much everyone has taken to calling them Death Lights. Long ago, it was thought they looked like the light that guided people to death, since they blossom the opposite of regular flowers. Even now, a lot of people don't like these flowers. To many, they're still considered a bad omen. That's also how they think of me. Frederic, you said before that this whole world is all just a dream you're having, right? But if this is your dream, and you can be so positive that what's happening is just a dream, how can you tell which is the real world, if what you're experiencing in the dream is that realistic to you? And to prove my point, you didn't read my mind earlier. You were wrong. I was thinking about leaving Tenuto. I want to go out into the world and live my own life, even if that life only exists inside your dream. I don't know how much time I have left to live, but I want to live what's left of my life in a positive way, bringing happiness to others. I just want to help people somehow. Like these flowers, even though people call them death lights, they still blossom and struggle to live on.
You're going to leave the village? But where do you intend to go after you leave Tenuto?
I'll go to Forte Castle, and then I'm going to meet with the Count to ask about the taxes on floral powder. Because right now, they're hurting everyone in the village. You know, you should be happy you couldn't read my mind. Since you can't use magic, it means you don't have an incurable illness. Please, stay at my house tonight. I'll tell my mom you're coming. You're a guest in our dream world, after all. That's not something that happens every day.
A flower that resembles you. A bad omen, death lights.